what's happening in today's society. Today, groups are going around searching for shadow racism in every corner of our society and in others, and they're calling people racist who aren't racist. And you can ruin a person's life doing that, especially in today's culture. Listen, we need to be introspective, and we need to look at ourselves. The change begins in us. If you want to be woke, let it start with you. Now, yes, we need to stand up and be against social injustice and racism. But don't ever accuse someone or the system of being racist if it's not true. Because in today's society, in a cancel culture, you can ruin a person or you can ruin a business simply by making an accusation like that. You know, used to it wasn't that way, but with social media, it is that way. I want you to notice what God says. This is Micah chapter 6, verses 7 through 8. It's not going to come up on the screen. It's just something I wanted this morning as I was praying. I thought, I need to share this with you. What pleases God? What pleases Him? Well, it says this, Micah chapter 6, verses 7 and 8. Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams or with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? In other words, for me to make myself right with God, what do I need to do? Sacrifices, offerings, what can I give? You asked Abraham to offer up Isaac, his only son. Of course, you stopped that. But Abraham was going to do it because he believed that you made these promises and that Isaac would be resurrected if he took his life because you called him. You called him to do this, God. So he's asking, what pleases God? Do all of these sacrifices, things that we do for Him, does that please God? Well, here's what the prophet Micah said, verse 8. He hath showed you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. To do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Justly means justice. When we see injustice, we need to stand up. We need to say that's not right. Even if it makes other people irritated at us. I'm going to tell you some stories about my personal life. I'm 60 years old. I'm on that cutting edge where I saw America making the change. My wife is 2 years younger and she doesn't remember any of this, but in 1964, my dad graduated from the University of Arkansas. My parents attended First Baptist Church, Fayetteville, Arkansas. And in 1964, it was the spring, my dad and mom were getting ready to graduate. They integrated the pools, the city pools. They had been segregated up until that time. You had pools for the blacks and pools for the whites. And the pastor got up and he said, because they had made this public, that they were integrating the pool systems. And he said, if I catch any of you, your children, swimming, and he made a racial slur. And this was the pastor. My mom and dad never went back to that church. In 1967, we moved to Tahlequah. 1967 was the year that Tahlequah integrated the school system. I'd never seen a black child in school until my third grade year. I never really thought about it because we came from Bartlesville. But as I got ready to go into fourth grade, we moved and I played baseball. My dad was coaching my baseball team. And I'll never forget this. I remember this from going into fourth grade. The person over the baseball league came up to my dad and he said, George, I have 2 black boys. No other coach will take them. Would you mind them being on your team? I'm sitting there hearing this. So I don't mind a bit. Robin and Stephen. My dad would pick them up for practice. And every once in a while, we'd give them a ride home, or they'd want to walk around at the campus because we practiced up at Northeastern. When he gave a ride home, we always stopped. Used to have a quick trip here, if you remember. Stop in and get a coolie, but we only did that when Robin and Stephen were with us, and I noticed that. Believe it or not, sometimes I'm pretty sharp. And I noticed Dad didn't do that when it was just us, but if he had them. And so one day I said, Dad, how come we never get a coolie when they're not with us? He said, son, you have no idea how people are treated. And I hope you never see it. When I was in 5th grade, they were having sit-ins up here at Northeastern State University. We had one car, and my dad was walking to work because he'd loaned the car out. The phone rang, and I picked it up. And we were taught to answer the phone, Nolan Residence, Allen speaking. Oh, I hated that. None of my friends did that. They just said hi. We got in trouble for doing that. You said Nolan Residence, Allen speaking. And this man said, is your dad home? And he was, you could tell he was mad. I said, yes, I'll get him. And I heard him cussing through the phone at my dad. Now, my dad got mad. He cussed like a sailor, too. And he just cussed him out and told him he'd give and loan his car to anyone he wanted. Because what my dad had done is my dad had a student who was graduating. He was black. And he had no car. And he wanted to be able to interview for jobs. And he had to drive. And he had no way to get to these different interviews. So for a week and a half, my dad loaned our car out for him to go and interview. And because we were a one-car family, my dad walked to work and walked home. Walked and got the groceries and brought them back home. And people were mad at him. I'll never forget the cussing I heard on that phone. My dad retaliated back. But my parents taught me from a very early age that what God requires is justice. Social justice for everyone. To love mercy. And to walk humbly. Why is that important? Because no one is superior to anyone else. We're all created by God. Made in His image. And we come from one race. Let me just say, this is probably the sermon that I dreaded more than the other